Today, we're going to take you behind the scenes of our short-term rental property management business and share our step-by-step process for onboarding a new listing.
We've shared our process before when we're bringing on a new client and it's a brand new listing and we're doing the setup of the property. But a lot of you have been asking for more details about what we do when we're bringing on an existing listing. So one that either was self-managed before or was managed by another property manager.
This video is intended for property managers or aspiring property managers, but investment buyers may get some tips out of the video if you're thinking about hiring a property manager as well.
We also just opened up the month of November on our consulting calendar. So if you get through this video and you still have more questions or want some more personalized guidance in your property management business, then check out the link in the description below.
We're going to cover a lot of info today, so get something to take some notes with and we'll get started.
My notebook's here.
The first step is the client finding us.
Targeting listings and then reaching out to the owner is not something that our company Arrivals has ever done. Not saying we won't ever do that, but it's not something that we've done yet.
We've never really had a marketing strategy that involves getting a whole bunch more listings. Our marketing has really been guest or potential guest focused.
Our social media efforts on Instagram have kind of come and gone in waves depending on how busy we are with client setups or new onboardings and things like that. And like Steven mentioned, it has been more targeted towards potential guests, but we have brought in a few property management clients because of it over the years as well.
Most of our clients have come from word of mouth referrals or people who have found us on Airbnb.
Either they were previous guests at one of our properties or they just went on to like the guest view on Airbnb and started looking at profiles of people who had multiple listings in the area that were well reviewed and were high in the search rankings.
We have our company name in our bio on Airbnb, so it's really not hard to find us or find our website once you click on our profile.
This year, YouTube has been a surprising source of new clients for us. I say surprising because it was never like the intent behind us starting this channel and really wasn't something that we thought was going to happen because of this channel.
We figured most people watching the channel would be either self-managing or other property managers. We are only taking on new clients right now in the Palm Springs area, so with the broad worldwide reach of YouTube, we didn't really think that many people would be local.
But we've been pleasantly surprised.
Palm Springs, get some!
Most potential new clients reach out via email through our website contact form, and that's how we prefer to start the conversation.
We'll usually reply and ask for some details about the property, the address, and a link to the existing listing on Airbnb if there is one.
If it sounds like a good fit, we'll kind of suggest a phone call next, and if it's not a good fit, we'll explain kind of our judgment criteria in a few minutes.
Judgment criteria, that sounds so...
That's what it is, man. Gotta make that decision.
Judge away.
Judge, judge, judge.
During a call, we're going to be sharing details about what we offer, what services we offer, answer any questions that the client may have, and also try to understand a bit more about the property and why they're looking for new management.
We'll also work to get an understanding of their goals and expectations for the property, and we'll kind of weigh that against the realities of the marketplace in our particular market.
And a lot of people want forecasts. That's one thing that we hear a lot, but we don't really like to do that or provide income guarantees.
Instead, we like to share actual data from our portfolio, whether that's past bookings or future bookings, and compare that to the owner's property, which can give them an expectation of the type of income that they can produce.
We are getting a lot more selective about the types of short-term rental properties that we take on, but we are a little bit more lenient about midterm rentals. We might take one on that isn't necessarily in, the style of the rest of our portfolio.
And the reason for that is very specific to our Coachella Valley market here. We get a lot of retirees that travel to the area in the winter time, and they're not really concerned about furniture and decor being on trend. They really just want a clean and comfortable place to stay.
That doesn't mean that you should not think about, decor and style when you're setting up a midterm rental, because we are able to charge a higher nightly rate at those more on-trend looking properties.
It doesn't mean we will just take on anyone though. It's really a partnership between us and the owners, and there have been times where we've just kind of made the call, whether it's the house or the owner, that it's just not the right fit.
Usually it's me that has the most reservations. We're just both kind of at a point in our business and lives, careers, that we don't want to be micromanaged. I don't know anyone that does, but we really don't want to be micromanaged. And we also don't want to be like talked down to. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Steven has a lot more patience with all of this than I do.
It's not really even patience. I just don't really let people push me around, and if they're going to dish it out, then I'm going to give it right back to them.
We're sensitive.
Very fragile.
That hurt my feelings. hurt my feelings.
If the discovery call goes well, it usually ends in the client asking, what's the next step? What do we do next? And that next step is sending them a copy of our management agreement.
For legal reasons and the fact that we don't give legal advice, this is not a document that we share with people and tell you, hey, use this and you'll be fine. But basically, we collected property management agreements from a few different sources and tweak them and kind of fit them to our needs, and that's what we use.
You can find some standard property management agreements online, and a lot of the big box short-term rental property management companies are pretty quick to give you a copy of their agreement if you ask as a potential new client.
So why is this potential client not an actual client?
What we will tell you is there are usually 4 or 5 sections where we take some additional questions or owners kind of push back, and we have to do some additional explaining for why we've written it that way.
And that doesn't mean that we necessarily lose the client over it, or also it doesn't necessarily mean that we go in and amend the contract just because the client wants us to.
Instead, we've learned how to explain these sections, why they're included, and then, how you really get buy-in and the owners to understand them.
Legalese can sometimes be confusing or even intimidating. So knowing the why behind putting in these more controversial sections of the contract is really important in being able to defend them.
We'll give you one example. One of the most controversial sections with owners is our commission rate and how it's calculated. We charge commission on the entire gross revenue amount.
That includes the nightly rate, but it also includes cleaning fees, pet fees, pool heating fees, late checkout fees, everything collected from the guest. And most potential new clients don't understand why we're collecting commission on these ancillary fees.
Our rationale is that with each of these items, there's a good amount of work and oversight that goes into it to make sure they're executed in a high quality way.
For example, with pool heating, we're making sure that it's turned on in advance of a guest arrival so it's warm when they get there. We're checking it daily, sometimes multiple times a day, to make sure that things are working properly. We're making sure that people aren't abusing the spa heater, and we're making sure that it's getting turned off when the guest leaves and the house is vacant.
We're also very strict with our cleaning standards, and this means inspecting our cleaners' work every time. There's an expense associated with that, and once we explain these things to owners, most are pretty quick to come on board with it.
Especially because a lot of property management companies don't offer that perfection inspection like we do, at least not in our market. Not every time.
So clean!
We're all in agreement on the contract terms, and the next step is for us to go and do an in-person walkthrough of the property.
During this walkthrough, we take a look at everything, mostly from an operational point of view. Their spares, are they of good quality? Is there a lockable storage place to keep spares?
We also look through all of the kitchen inventory, open up all of the cabinets, and take photos of the contents of the interior of all of them. We can look at those photos later and analyze them and see if there's anything that's missing or we might recommend they purchase.
We also look at the smart home setup, and one thing here that we see a lot is we really despise the routers that internet service providers give out. So that's a likely recommendation where we'll recommend a higher quality, easier to manage, more reliable router.
It's a strong word, but it's true.
They're bad.
You bang on the router, will you?
We also include a smart lock and a driveway camera as part of our management agreement, no additional cost to the owner. So while we're on site, we're looking at where we can put these items, what style we're gonna need to put on the door, where we can power the camera, things like that.
We'll also scout out a spot for our noise monitor, which is mounted on the exterior, and then look at the TVs to see if they have streaming capability.
Offering some sort of live TV streaming for guests is like a minimum amenity that we ask owners to provide.
Guests like to be able to come into the house, turn on the TV, see live programming, whether it be sports or news or things like that. And we like YouTubeTV the most because their interface is simple and easy to use.
Currently, YouTubeTV is running around $70 a month. We will leave a link in the description box below, which gives you a discount on, I believe, your first 3 months of service.
So after that walkthrough, but before any other steps, we really make sure that the owner is ready to move forward and ready to sign the management agreement.
At this point, we'll have our list of recommendations that we made during our walkthrough and inspection, but before we hand over that list to the owner, we want to make sure that they've signed the management agreement.
Fortunately, this is an area where we've been burned in the past.
Basically served as unpaid consultants in some situations where we've come up with detailed recommendations for the property, how to improve the marketability, how to improve the guest experience, only to then have the potential new client say, thanks, but we're actually gonna go with this other guy down the street who only charges us 15%.
Oh, hell no!
To sum that up, we make them sign if they haven't already at this point.
Once they do, we'll send over an email with our recommendations and also a general timeline of next steps for onboarding the property.
There are times when this is just a few items, maybe a couple missing kitchen amenities, but then there are times where this is quite a bit more involved.
If it is just a few items for us to purchase and bring to the property, we're not typically going to charge a setup fee for that, but if it's more involved, then we will.
It's hard to say how much we'll charge. Obviously, it's based on the scope of work, but then we also do weigh how busy we are and what other things that setup might take us away from.
If the client does decide to do the implementation themselves, then we'll still go back once they say they're finished and do another inspection and make sure that it's actually done.
7 times out of 10, it actually isn't done and there's still more work to do. And then we have to point that out to the owner that, hey, you missed this, or you didn't do such a thing.
Finish? Did I finish? I believe I finished.
I think a lot of people really underestimate how much work those little details are at the very end to like get them all done and crossed off your list.
Organizing kitchens and supplies and linens, especially if it's like not your thing, can be overwhelming. And what we see is people getting like 90-95% of the way there. They just kind of say, okay, it's done, here you go, and like pass us the ball.
It can be a little frustrating, especially when we've made a proposal on how to do the work correctly the first time. And instead of hiring us to do it, they opt to do it themselves. When they don't finish, this requires us to go in and fill in the gaps,
with the expectation that we won't be compensated for that work. And I don't think that a lot of the times it's even intentional. They might truly think that it's done and ready. So as a manager, just be prepared for that.
Over the years though, we've learned to stand up for ourselves a bit, because if we go back and there's still a good amount of things to do, we'll summarize that list along with a price for us to finish it.
Once the property is operating, it is absolutely our responsibility to keep things organized and the house in good shape. But setting up the property and ongoing management of the property are two different things.
If there's nothing else to be done setup wise and no changes to be made, then what follows is usually some on-site time, usually 2 to 3 days between the two of us, where we really get to know the house. And the tasks between the two of us are quite a bit different.
For me, this is when I'm putting all of the finishing touches on the house. I'm probably reorganizing the kitchen, putting labels on all the cabinets, making our walkthrough video, and just generally getting to know all of the ins and outs of the property.
If you missed our previous video where we talk about this walkthrough video Kylie mentioned, this is just us taking a thorough video of everything in the house, light switches, everything really. If a guest asks, we have a resource to come back to and look at how something works.
Light switches are one thing, which lights are actually operating, also where all of the GFCIs are located, that's one that comes up a lot, and other frequently asked questions.
My tasks are a little bit more handyman related. The things that we provide in our management agreement, the smart lock, the driveway camera, the noise monitor, those all get installed during this time. If they already have some smart home equipment, maybe cameras or a lock, we'll make sure that the owner shares those account access details with us if possible, or we'll take it over and be the main point of contact with those devices.
We're also installing and or setting up a router onto our network name and password, and we're also making sure that all of these smart home devices and TVs are connected to the new network.
I also really get familiar with all the mechanical things in the house, switches, electrical panel, furnace, AC units, pool equipment, all that sort of thing.
And taking notes if something is a little quirky.
How do we work this thing?
We also write the house manual at this point. It is a good practice to write it while you're on site just so that you don't forget anything, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Once the setup is complete and everything is ready to go, then we find a time to take listing photos.
Usually this falls in between those on-site days because typically the house is photo ready before it's actually guest ready.
Sometimes we'll need to schedule our cleaners to come over and make sure everything is in great shape, or sometimes clean the windows.
It's not always necessary. Sometimes it's, clean enough for the photos. So we'll wait then. I'll just do a little bit of light staging and then we'll have the cleaners come in before the guest comes.
We take all of our own photos, Kylie takes them, and we aren't saying that everyone should do that. We started taking our own photos from the beginning, and photos, weren't such a huge high priority as they are scrutinized now. So keep that in mind.
We have a really nice camera. I know how to use it, and I like to think that I generally have a good eye for composition, but I really don't like editing photos, and I also know it's not my strong suit. So this year I actually started to outsource my editing. I found a very talented person on Fiverr, and now I send her all of my raw photos and she edits them for about $1 a photo and works her magic.
Once we get those photos back, it's time to create the actual property listing. We start with Airbnb, which after that, our property management software Uplisting imports.
And once the listing is synced with Uplisting, Uplisting will then create a listing for us on Vrbo and Google Vacation Rentals with just the click of a button.
We've been really happy with Uplisting. It has all the features and the user interface is convenient. It's worked well for us. We'll leave a link to it in the video description below if you want to check it out.
We also create a listing manually on our direct booking website. If you've been around our channel for a while, you might have seen our video at the beginning of this year where we shared that one of our goals for 2023 was to drastically increase our direct bookings.
And that's been successful. We have seen a good increase in direct bookings this year. We attribute a good part of that due to Google Vacation Rentals. Uplisting is one of the few property management softwares that has a direct integration with Google Vacation Rentals, so it makes that process very simple.
If you'd like us to do an update video on how our direct booking efforts have been going this year, leave us a comment below, and we'll also link a video on screen that we think you might want to watch next.
Check out our Calendly link below if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one consultation and get all your short-term rental questions answered.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.